Okay, so we all think we know the story of the American Revolution, right? Washington crossing the Delaware, the Declaration of Independence, the whole fight for liberty against this giant empire. But what if I told you there's a forgotten first chapter? A blueprint, really, written decades before on this tiny little island in the Mediterranean. It was a real-world test case for America's founding fathers. Seriously, let's get into it.
So who was it? Well, the answer is kind of the key to this whole thing. And no, it wasn't a king or some famous philosopher. It wasn't even another colonist. It was a general. A general from this tiny island nation whose fame just exploded across the American colonies. His name became a synonym for courage and freedom. That man was Pasquale Paoli. And you know, the proof that he was a big deal? It's hiding in plain sight. I'm not just talking about a newspaper article here and there. This was, well, it was a full-blown phenomenon. Paoli fever, you could call it. I mean, patriots were literally naming their kids, their towns, even their ships after him. Let that sink in. A leader of the Boston protests, Ebenezer McIntosh, names his son Pasquale Paoli. John Hancock? Yeah, that John Hancock? He names one of his ships the Paoli. And get this, a young Alexander Hamilton, still in college, joins a student militia called the Corsicans. So you gotta ask, right? What on earth was going on 4,000 miles away that got the American colonies so fired up? Okay, to figure that out, we've got to take a trip across the Atlantic. We're heading to the source of all this buzz, the rugged and, as you'll see, very rebellious island of Corsica.
You see, Corsica's entire history for a long time was just a story of being ruled by someone else. It's right there in the middle of the Mediterranean, so of course it was a huge prize for any empire on the rise. And for centuries, that's all it was, a piece of land to be conquered and controlled. It was a vassal state that belonged to pretty much everyone except the Corsicans.
I mean, the list of who ruled them is just staggering. We're talking Greeks, Romans, Vandals, it just goes on and on. And for almost 500 years, right before our story starts, it was the Republic of Genoa calling the shots. So you can imagine by the 1700s, yeah, people were getting pretty fed up. A revolution was definitely in the air.
And right into the middle of all this discontent steps our guy, Pasquale Paoli. Now, his dad had actually been a leader in the revolution before he was exiled, so Paoli grows up in Naples, but in 1755, he comes back. He's 30 years old, and he's ready. He's named Général Chef de la Nation, basically the general-in-chief of the nation, and he's the one who leads Corsica to finally declare independence from Genoa. But here's the thing. Paoli and the Corsicans, they didn't just win a few fights. No, they did something way more radical, something that ended up being their greatest export. They actually wrote down the rules for a whole new way of running a country.
And get this, they did it in 1755. Just let that number sink in for a second. We're talking more than 20 years before America's Declaration of Independence, 32 years before the U.S. Constitution gets signed. This was one of the very first written national constitutions of the modern world, maybe the first. It was completely groundbreaking.
And the really wild part is just how similar it was, at least in spirit, to what America would do later. The parallels are they're incredible. Both were based on all those big Enlightenment ideas. Both set up a republic with elected representatives, and both had a separation of powers. Now, if you're an American colonist, getting really tired of being ruled by a king thousands of miles away, this isn't just some dusty old theory. This is a real working model of what you want to do.
And honestly, in some ways, the Corsican Constitution was even more revolutionary than what came later in America. Just look at these voting rights. All men over 25 could vote, period. Didn't matter if you owned property, didn't matter what your race was. And this is absolutely insane for the 18th century, it even let unmarried or widowed women over 25 vote. I mean, come on. This was a truly radical idea of what a government by the people, for the people, could look like.
Okay, so you have this revolutionary constitution on this tiny island. The big question is, how does that story travel 4,000 miles and create this Paoli fever in the American colonies? I mean, how did an idea like this go viral in a world without, the internet?
Well, the answer is one guy and a best-selling book. A young adventure-seeking writer from Scotland named James Boswell. In 1765, he's doing the whole grand tour of Europe thing, and he just gets completely obsessed with what's happening in Corsica. He manages to get a letter of introduction from the philosopher Rousseau, a big deal, and he makes this super difficult trip to the island to meet Paoli in person.
And Boswell was just totally blown away. He was only there for a few days, but Paoli's charisma, his presence, it just left this huge impression on him. This quote from his journal really captures it, right? It's so intense. Boswell didn't see some backwater rebel. He saw a brand new kind of leader, a leader who was principled, who was powerful, and who was created by this fight for freedom.
And the timing. Oh, the timing was just perfect. So in 1768, Boswell publishes his book, An Account of Corsica, and it's an instant hit. It arrives in the American colonies right as things are getting super tense with Britain. You've got the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, the colonists are arguing constantly about what liberty even means. And then this book shows up. And it's not just some travel story. It's a real-time report about a group of people who stopped debating freedom and actually started fighting for it.
So, what happened to this incredible revolutionary nation? And if it disappeared, how did its story live on?
Well, tragically, this amazing experiment didn't last. A tiny island republic, well, it's just no match for a giant empire. In 1769, just 1 year after Boswell's book became a bestseller, France rolled in and annexed Corsica. After all that work, all that fighting, their independence only lasted for 14 years.
But the story doesn't end there, not at all. Paoli was forced into exile, yeah, but his reputation as this revolutionary hero, that was set in stone. The historian David A. Bell puts it perfectly. He says Paoli gave the world, and especially America, a model for a new kind of leader. Someone whose power didn't come from being born into the right family, but from their character and their dedication to liberty. You could say he was the prototype for George Washington.
And this, right here, is the most important takeaway from all of this. The actual physical nation of Corsica, it was defeated. But the idea behind it, the idea that a small group of people could stand up to an empire, declare themselves a free nation, and write their own rules based on liberty, that idea couldn't be conquered. And it found some very, very fertile new soil 4,000 miles away in America.
So, what's the bottom line here? The Corsican Revolution gave American patriots a real-world case study. It wasn't just theory anymore. It gave them this powerful symbol. One historian called it a small fish fighting an entire empire, which is perfect. It gave them a hero, Paoli, whose name basically meant freedom fighter. And it literally left its mark on the American map. There are still towns named Paoli in places like Pennsylvania and Indiana. They're like these quiet little monuments to this amazing, forgotten story.
It's just such a powerful reminder that history isn't a straight line, you know? It's this web of connections. The seeds of one revolution can literally travel across an ocean and bloom in another one. The story of Pasquale Paoli in Corsica, it's not some tiny footnote in American history. It's part of the foundation. And it really makes you wonder, right? What are the forgotten blueprints are out there in the pages of history, just waiting for us to find them?